welcome to another exciting episode of Behind the Green Screen. As you can see, there's no green screen behind me, and I wish I could say with confidence what episode this is, and I really need to do a better job before I get on camera and find out what episode I'm at so that I can say, Welcome to episode blank. But I believe I might be at episode 23 or 24. All right, it's around that neighborhood of number. All right. The books I'm going to cover tonight is really one major book that I want to cover that got me really, really excited. But I also want to introduce another book that um, sort of gave me background for the book that I got as a gift. All right. So picture it 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and the government has geared back up. They've reopened, and that means that all the museums are open. Now, as I stated earlier, I am a docent at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. And so the Smithsonian American Art Museum is not just that museum. There's another museum, a sister museum, or a museum that's they are connected, and that's the Renwick Gallery. Smithsonian American Art Museum, or SAM, SAAM, that is located um, near Chinatown. If you know DC area, then you know what I'm talking about. It's near the Capital One Center. And the Renwick Gallery is right across the street from the White House. So when I went through my training program and I talked about this, I had to do a checkout tour. Now, I've done my checkout tour for Sam. So I'm AJ squared away and I can give tours. I can go in, find like 7 pieces, research them, and put together a tour for people who come in because people do want tours of museums. They feel overwhelmed. They don't know where to begin. So it's just best to just, sign up for a docent tour. And then that way you don't feel, there's like pieces that are chosen, and then after you've seen those pieces, then it sort of gives you more um, encouragement to explore the other floors and what all is there. And you better have a better critical eye of what you're looking at, because people don't realize, like, docents, we do more than just tell you about a piece of art. We tell you how to look at it, how to find clues, and how to interpret what you're looking at. So it's very, it takes some research, and you have to also be like focused on a theme. You can't go all willy-nilly. You can't be everywhere. You have to have a theme, and everything that you pick has to feed into that theme somehow. And then through that theme, you instruct visitors like, this is the historic background on this piece. This is the historic information on the artist, and this is what was going on at the time when this artist did this thing. And it sort of helps give you perspective and, a place to start, instead of just looking at it and just trying to say, oh, that's a nice pasture land. Well, why did the artist paint that pasture land? What is the artist trying to communicate? And, so for my tours, it's all about, what's the message? Find the clues that will give you the message of what all is going on in the painting. And so those where my tours are, they're, what's the message? Don't just judge it by just looking at it. Don't just say, okay, that's a picture of a house. There's more to it than just a picture of a house. Okay. So the government has reopened, the museums have reopened. I am blessed for Sam, but I am not blessed for the Renwick. So there was a consortium, symposium, blah blah blah, that was offered to all the docents from all the museums that are under the Smithsonian. And so when I was there, I had a chance to connect with my mentor, who's still my mentor because I have not completed the checkout tour for Renwick. I'm putting that together. As a matter of fact, I need to go into DC this upcoming weekend and sort of look at my pieces again and sort of start thinking about how I'm going to do that tour. So I met up with my mentor and she says, "Oh, I have something for you." Because she had mentioned it before. But when I was coming to the symposium, she says, "Oh, now I can give it to you." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So she told me where it was and I went. And um, I love getting books as a gift, but it's so nice when someone gets you or kind of understands where you're coming from and get you a book that sort of like it's like they're reading your mind. All right. Now, I never told my mentor, that I was looking at this period of art. I mean, she didn't know, but she somehow knew that I would be interested. Um, so this is the book. And oh, well, before I show the book, let me give you some info before I show it. All museums, they have collections, right? National Gallery of Art, they have 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th century, um, not only American, but also European. Majority of this stuff is European. But with all these collections, what happens is that the museums will put together a catalog of all the pieces that they have from that artist, along with the backstory to each piece, what the artist was attempting to do, what was going on at the time, etc., etc., etc. So, oh, you know what? I think I know where my how my mentor knew that I was interested, and that was through my checkout tour. All right, for Sam. I know I'm going all over the place. So at Sam, there are pieces they have from Black artists who came out of the Harlem Renaissance. They have Lois Mayu Jones. They have Jacob Lawrence. Um, uh, I always forget his Malvin Gray and one other artist from Harlem Renaissance, and that's the catalog that she gave me. And as now that I think about it, it's not that much of a surprise because when I did my checkout tour for Sam, one of the pieces I had as part of my tour, the artist wasn't necessarily part of the Harlem Renaissance, but came out during that time. And if you check out previous OG Fact Checker episodes, you will see it's Horace Pippin. Horace Pippin, the I can't remember the number of the episode, but the title of the episode is One Arm, No Problem. All right. So Horace Pippin, I mentioned that during my checkout tour, and that must have clicked for something in my mentor's head because I mentioned all the rest because they're right across the hall from the Horace Pippin piece at Sam. So she must have kept that in the back of her mind, and when she had an opportunity to get this catalog for me, she got it. So this is the catalog. All right, it's called Fighters for Freedom, and it's a catalog on all pieces from, drum roll please, William H. Johnson. William H. Johnson was one of those painters that came out of the Harlem Renaissance. He was really cool with another painter that I covered in an OG Fact Checker episode. Of course, I don't remember the number, but I remember the title. And the title is The Passionate Pitcher Who Liked to Paint Pictures. And that is Romare Bearden. All right. So as I was doing research for the Romare Bearden OG Fact Checker episode, I came across William H. Johnson and their sort of friendship, uh, uh, not kinship exactly. That's a little bit too. It's not kinship. They had a working relationship, they were, you know, I am having so much problems pulling words that I know I can pull. But they had a really good relationship. They knew each other, they hung out together. They didn't collaborate exactly, but Romare Bearden, he kind of threw shade at William H. Johnson because William H. Johnson was he wasn't like the other painters of that period because he had training in Europe and he stayed in Norway. He married a woman from Norway and lived there for quite a number of years. Now, I didn't realize that. Oh no, did I pay? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I gotta put this away. I'm looking at it. I kind of ruined some pages, but so he was different from the rest in which, he had formal training. He was in Europe, and one of Romare Bearden's criticisms, because he was sort of like, I guess he was like the godfather. He was always sort of advocating for Black expression in art. Like, don't do what, we're how they want us to perform. We should perform and reflect our art that reflects our community. And that's what Romare Bearden sort of advocated for. And, he sort of threw shade at people who sort of kowtowed to white interests because they were the sponsors, basically. So if these people wanted to eat and continue to paint, they often catered to their tastes. And Romare Bearden said, he accused William Johnson of doing the same thing. Like, no one cares about, pictures of pastures in Europe. That's not going to engage our people in that art. So if you want to be an artist, a Black artist, what you should do is reflect what you see around you in your art and have your art advocate for change, basically. So I guess William H. Johnson, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care how wrong it is. William H. Johnson was a hottie. Okay, let me show you. That's him. That's him right there. Is he hot or is he hot? Okay, I'm just saying. He was a good looking man. So William H. Johnson took it to heart, and he realized that he really should start, reflecting what he sees, reflecting his people, reflecting their daily lives. And so this is what he starts doing, right? He stops. This is his style, and it's a very unique. I won't want to say it was very unique, but it stands out as a style, right? And you can always recognize a William H. Johnson. Let me say that. You can always recognize. I always, it's amazing how the reflection off the pages just changes the lighting in this room. It's amazing. So, so William H. Johnson is saying, yes, right, I do need to start reflecting the struggle of Black people. I am a Black person. The reason why I did not stay in the United States for a long period of time is because of the racism. So he starts thinking like, yeah, maybe I should be a part of that struggle and reflect what I see in my art. So that's what he starts doing, and he does a series of panel paintings, that reflects the people who created change for freedom of Black people. So you can see here, this is a picture that he's painted of Frederick Douglass with the green hair, Harriet Tubman in the center, and Abe Lincoln on the other side of Harriet Tubman. So these are just some of the things that, some of the pictures that he started painting, to reflect, what was going on, but also what was going on in his head. As a matter of fact, here's another one, right? As you can see, very, you can See that the people that are being hanged in the back. This is supposed to be Frederick Douglass again, and you know that's supposed to be a slave. And I believe that yeah, that's supposed to be Abe Lincoln. So he did a series. I can't remember how many of these he painted, but the entire catalog of that series is in this book. All right, here's another one. And here he has Mary Bethod, um, Mary McLeod Bethune. Oh, I hate this tracking. Mary McLeod Bethune in this one, you know. So he's tapping out historical black historical. Let's try this again. So he's pointing out people of historical value who played a role in the emancipation of slaves, fought for freedom, and of course, Harriet Tubman, Abe Lincoln, and Frederick Douglass all play a very central role in that, especially, you know, the whole Civil War, you know, as a matter of fact. Well, it wasn't entirely about that, but I'm not even going to get into that. So he starts and then he starts to do like people who um, made strides in other areas too. All right, so this is supposed to be Jack Johnson. If you don't know who he is, look it up. And he has others, like he does the arts as well. Here is his dedication to Josephine Baker. Here's his dedication. There we go. Here's his dedication to Josephine Baker and other Black artists. So he starts to really reach, I think, inside himself and, you know, what it means to be Black. Here, he has a dedication. He does Marian Anderson. Okay. So that's the entire series of this. So um, this is a book. I got it as a gift. You know, there is uh, perks to being a docent for the Smithsonian Museum, and one of those one of those perks is getting books like these, like catalogs like these. And this book, An American Odyssey: The Life and Work of Romare Bearden. If you don't know who Romare Bearden is or what his art is, let me see if I can show you. I adore Romare Bearden because his collage work is just amazing. All right. Romare Bearden is mostly known for his collage work, but he didn't always do collages. He wanted to do something different. He wanted to change things up a bit. And first, he intended it to be collaborative, but the young folks that he was trying to reach out to and see if they wanted to collab, they was like, no, we're good, we're straight. So Romero was like, fine, I'll do this on my own. And he had a debut, and before you know it, he was known for his collage work. And if you remember, I tried to chase that dream on canvas. If you remember, I had a canvas over here because I was so inspired by this book, which, by the way, as far as a book goes, you can tell that I was really doing my research, right? Like, you know, it's not easy to take a book this size and condense it into into an episode that's under an hour. It is not easy. But the one thing I'll say about this book is that it's very thorough. It's a bit um let me say this. Normally when I see books out of academia on a particular person, I find it to be very dry. I find it to be not engaging at all. I feel as though the book speaks at me and not to me, which is why I avoid a lot of, believe it or not, I avoid a lot of academic driven books because I feel like they're not really trying to talk to me. They're trying to talk to other scholars in the field. And I think, what's the sense in putting out this book if you're not going to make it more approachable to others who may want to find out about this person? Now, does this book speak at me? A little bit, a little bit. Um, I mean, I was able to get through. I won't say like I was able, like it was like this big horrifying deal to get through it. It really was not a big deal. But I was driven to read this because I wanted to have a really good fact checker episode. So I wasn't really looking at writing or flow or anything like that. But I will say this, I remember it like the flow is a little bit stops and starts, stops just when I think it's getting, is getting good, the narrative switches up and we're thrown back to something else. And but I find that that is often what happens when it comes to biographies. So I think it's just a me problem and not necessarily a writer problem. It's just the way the jerking back and forth sometimes can be a little bit like, okay, where were we right now? Hold on one second. I got to go back 2 chapters. You know what I mean? So, but this is a very comprehensive biography, I will say, of Romare Bearden. So if you are an artist, or if you're just like into art and you want to know more about a particular style and how they arrived at their style, then I recommend Romare Bearden. And as a matter of fact, I wasn't able to achieve that um, collage work on canvas, but I was able to do it digitally, which was very, very weird, but I think it was because um I think I had what I needed, right? When I was trying to do the collage thing on canvas, I was making do with what I had. But if I do it digitally and I have an idea in my mind, then I can go pull or grab and do the collage work. So I think that was the difference. I was making do with what I had, but when it's digital, I can just go and pluck what I want, and that way I was able to create more smoothly, more freely, without you know feeling like it wasn't going anywhere. And then there's also the restraint when you have canvas, is that if you're working with different types of tools, and like if you're using paint and you're using clipping from magazines, like you don't want it to look like a hot mess express. But somehow, I think I showed the book that I got from the Renwick on collage work. I showed that in a previous behind the green screen episode. So yeah, all of this exposure and being a part, not necessarily being knee deep in the art world. I'm nowhere near that. I'm just skating along the ice. You know what I'm saying? Like I always do with everything. I'm skating on the ice, not to say that I'm slacking, meaning that I'm just covering the surface. I'm just gliding on the surface, not really digging deep. Because I'm not an art history major. And even though I do find these artists fascinating and inspiring, me doing deep dives when I'm not really a visual artist like that, I don't know. It would just be like oh, that's kind of interesting. Let me see if I can incorporate that in my designs. So that's it for today's episode, this episode. How's that? This episode. That's it for this episode. Um, I think, yeah, yeah. So I was going to introduce another book because I have another book with me, but it really wouldn't make sense to show it to you, only because it's a textbook. And you know what? I'm gonna do this really, really quick. All right. Okay. So let's back it up a second. All right. Um, I think I discussed in the episode how I got into visual art, how I was like floored. I was taking an American art history class, and oh, I just now noticed that my TV is still on. I could have sworn I turned it off. All right. So I was taking an American art history class as an undergrad, and that's how I got into American art. And from that exposure led me, and I talked about this also, to go for a docent training at the Wadsworth Atheneum in Hartford, Connecticut. But I wasn't able to finish that, which is why when I got down here, I went for the docent program at SAM in order to make up for the fact that I never really was able to complete that program. So when I did the docent program at the Wadsworth, I was able to do the education portion of it, but I wasn't able to do the mentorship portion. So one of the books as part of the education portion of it was this one, Framing America. And it's pretty much a go-to, I think, for museums and their docent programs because um, when I was at SAM for that program, they use the same thing. And so this is a very good book. You can get away with an older copy. This is the second edition. I think the third edition is out. But like I said, this is a textbook and it's very expensive. So if you really want to get this book, you can go on a used book site and you can find it 25, 30 bucks because as you can see, like I said, this is a textbook. All right. Now, what's great about this book, oh, and I should give you the full title. All right. So it's Framing America, A Social History of American Art, and it's by Francis K. Pohl. All right. And like I said, this is the second edition. I think there is a third edition out there. I'm positive because yes, there is a third edition because I looked at it and I was like, no, I think this is going to be fine. What's great about this book is that it covers it all, even architecture. All right. And from this, I learned how, really art and painting, how it all got started in New England, and how a lot of the painters here in America did not have formal training in Europe, and they basically taught themselves. Now, this is John Singleton Copley. I believe Copley was self taught. He was, I think it's been a long time. It's been a long time. But if you really want to get like some really interesting information, um, here is this one is oh my gosh. And what's really interesting, every time I open up this book is something new. But every time but what's for me, what blows my mind is that some of the stuff that's in here is at Sam. So if I see something in here and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I know where that is, I can find it at Sam. And this is one of them. This is one of the ones that's at Sam. Now, if you were to ask me what's my favorite art period, I could not tell you. Who's my favorite artist? I don't, there's so many here and across the pond that there's certain things that they do that just strikes me. And so I really don't have a fascination or a dedication to one particular visual artist. I remember when I came across Rene Magritte, and I thought his art was whimsical and wonderful. And yeah, go look up Rene Magritte. And as a matter of fact, you might recognize one of his paintings. It was used for a Beatles album cover. All right. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm looking at the time and I'm not going to get too much into it. But I will say this. If you are ever in DC and you would like a tour of Smithsonian American Art Museum, let me know, and I will give you a tour, um, because I do enjoy it. And I will give you a tour that will knock any other tour off the plate. Like there will be no other tours after mine. Mine is the pinnacle. And I will give you guys, I'll let you know if I pass my closing tour for the Renwick. I will let you know how that goes also. My checkout tour. All right. So to recap the books for today, and you notice, you know what? And I'm going to say this to you, and I encourage you to do this. Have reference books in your library. It's not going to hurt you. I have a bunch. I'm surprised at how many reference books I have. And it can be on flowers. I have reference books on knitting. I just have, you know, don't be afraid. And I'll say this about reference books: the cheapest place to get them, go to used bookstores. You'll have a blast. I haven't been to any since I've been down here, and there are a lot of mom and pop bookshops or bookstores that I really would like to visit and find, like, this rare book, like one of those finds, like you're like, oh snap, oh, I can't believe I found this. That I like to have that experience, like the experience that I got when I got that book as a gift. All right. So to recap, this is a biography on Romare Bearden. It's called An American Odyssey: The Life and Work of Romare Bearden by Mary Schmidt Campbell. Mary Schmidt Campbell, I believe, I don't know if she is now, but she is, at the writing of this book, president of Spelman College. Okay. So there's that, An American Odyssey. There is Fighters for Freedom. This is a Sam catalog on William H. Johnson, because what I also, is called Fighting for Freedom, Picturing Justice. And what I also found out is that, okay, so at the time that William H. Johnson, he passes away, very young age, like in his early 40s, and um, the people who were handling his pictures, they had it in storage because he had like thousands, like 1,000 of paintings and sketches and all kinds of stuff. And so what they did, to save it, because it had been in storage and there had been flooding and there was a lot of his work that got lost. So they said the best place for all of his stuff, they know that it would be taken care of, was the Smithsonian American Art Museum. So Sam holds the entire William H. Johnson catalog. I'm going to amend that. Let me correct that. Not all of it. Because what Sam did was that they gave it out to some of the universities, the HBCUs, which I thought was dope as hell. So there are some pieces at Howard University. I think there's some pieces at Spelman. I'm not sure what colleges got all of them. It's in the book. No, I don't think they list all the colleges that got them. I think they mentioned some of them. But some of the colleges and universities, HBCSUs, they do have some of William H. Johnson's work. But the majority of it is at Smithsonian American Art Museum. And there are a couple on display. So again, if you're ever in the DC area and you would like a docent tour of the Smithsonian American Art Museum, drop me a line, send me a comment, and we'll make that happen. Okay. And the third book, which is a textbook, but I highly recommend if you would like to know more about the history of American art in America, which is utterly fascinating because it really is a scrappy attitude to a lot of the painters that, you know, came, that we know today, a lot of scrappiness. Okay. So this book, Framing America, A Social History of American Art, written by Francis H. Pohl. All right. And that's it for this episode. And I'm at 35 minutes. Excellent. So it's time for our mantra. Ready? Um, all is well. Everything is working for my highest good. Out of this experience, only good will come. I am safe. Namaste. All right. Until next time, take care of yourself. I know it's crazy out there, but have a wonderful holiday if I don't post another episode. I probably will, but if I don't, have a safe and happy holiday.